Good morning, everyone. This is Doug Smith. Just wanted to give you the 2-minute warning, let you know we'll be starting in 2 minutes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Smith, and I'm here with Mick Williams. We are from Infinity Network Solutions, and we will be your presenters today to talk about trends and technology trends in business. Say good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here.
So let's kick it off by talking about technology trends in business. First thing I want to do is kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today, and I thought nothing better to illustrate that than a quick story. One of the things that we want to discuss is not only how technology trends are going on, but how they can impact you in a very short period of time. Things that you may not think of as actually being something that would be designed for your business may actually be something that changes your business. And I'm going to give you the example of the Coca-Cola vending machine. So technology that's continually changing and impacting how you conduct business can impact areas of your business you never thought of. The Coca-Cola vending machine, for example, used to be a product where you would have to send out a truck. Coca-Cola would send out a truck, and the truck would have to be a very large truck that always had enough stock to be able to restock the vending machine. They did not know until they got to the vending machine how much content was used out of the vending machine. They didn't know if it was out of Cokes or if it was out of Diet Cokes, and inevitably they would not have the right stock when they got there to stock all the machines. And if you've ever gone to a vending machine and you've seen the handwritten Sprite note on the Fanta button, you understand that they didn't have the Fanta, they had to put the Sprite in, and obviously that's not a very effective way to try to run the business. Now bring in the internet, okay? And now Coke machines are tied to the internet. So instead of having to be checked manually like they were 10 years ago, the Coke machine can communicate with the stocking facility prior to the driver coming out. So it can say, hey, I don't need anybody to come out this week. We still have enough stock. Or I'm completely out of Coke and I need to, restock that. Yes, ma'am.
So what you're telling me is the internet has helped me not run into a Coke machine that didn't have Dr. Pepper.
Exactly. Not only that didn't have Dr. Pepper, but because the Coke machine's communicating and tracking, how the Dr. Pepper is being used, it can tell you that it's run out, quicker than any other drink. And so maybe you need to stock 2 chambers with Dr. Pepper rather than just 1.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I think it's a wonderful idea too. Obviously, the trucks don't need to be as large because they can carry very specific inventory for, the machines that day. They can literally pull a report that morning that says every machine that I have to restock today, this is what they need right now. Okay. And additionally, you can reduce the actual amount of times you have to go out by checking the inventory remotely. You don't have to check it manually each time. A lot of times in the past, drivers would go out and there was no need to do anything. The machines were still full. So as you can see, with Coke machines being connected to the internet, I think maybe 10 years ago, if we'd have said, hey, we want to connect vending machines to the internet, everybody would have said, that's crazy. How could a Coke machine being connected to the internet change my business? But you can very quickly see how it can save money for, not having to make trips, how it can make your marketing better by stocking things that are selling faster in more departments, more containers, and by, just saving on the size of vehicles you have to purchase to send out to stock these machines because you don't have to carry as much inventory. So technology can play a role in changing the business without you even realizing right now that technology is going to apply to your business. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go through several technologies that are trending right now and why they're trending. We're going to cover those in individual sessions. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is the cloud. We're going to talk about the speed of the internet and network speeds and what's happened to those over the last few years. We're going to cover telecommuting. We're going to cover virtual presence, software as a service, hardware as a service, artificial intelligence, and big data. That's a big topic these days. And of course, managed services. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Mick and let Mick kick us off with the cloud to start with.
Let's talk a little bit about how the cloud is going to benefit our businesses and everything. First of all, it allows for the outsourcing of support. You don't have to have an on-site IT staff because you're going to be outsourcing your services and everything that you need to the cloud, and they're already being supported. Business enjoys the benefit as an economy of scale. Instead of having to have a device purchased for every little thing, you're able to use the cloud to manage and to run everything, and also to license software through. Email, file storage, and applications are now commonly found in the cloud. Office 365, Google Apps, those types of services are readily available in the cloud, and it certainly is a benefit to the business not having to have all of those services right here on site. Platform independence. We can have people that are in different departments working on different types of devices. You can use a MacBook.
I was going to ask, so does it matter if I'm a Mac or a PC?
No, actually, since you're using it in the cloud, it will actually function just as well on a PC or a Mac.
That's a great benefit. It solves a lot of arguments in the office.
It really does. Really does. Location independence. If you're using the cloud, I can work and do things from home just as well and just as securely as if I'm sitting here in the office. And so that does is it frees you up to hire people that are qualified that may be living in across country.
Oh, that's a great thing. So how about some examples?
It allows for outsourcing of support. It allows for remote support of that. That way, if you're working and you've got cloud users and everything, you're not needing to have somebody on site or on your staff to
so kind of like what we do.
Correct. And Infinity is a great example of it. We're able to remotely connect, fix everything, or we can actually fix the cloud services even without connecting to your device. Economy of scale is another wonderful benefit of the cloud in your marketing environment. If you were to have to purchase everything to do with the marketing in devices, software packages, training, and everything, it can be cost prohibitive for us unless you're a medium or large business. Small businesses are kind of left out. So what you're able to do by using the cloud, a good example is Salesforce. Salesforce allows you to leverage their hardware and software in a situation where you're just basically paying a monthly fee.
So what you're saying is the economy of scale gives me the ability to have access to products and services I wouldn't otherwise be able to afford, because now they're offered in the cloud as something I can just purchase monthly.
That is correct. It really just, what it does is it allows for you to step up and play with the big boys.
There.
Email, file storage, and applications. A good example is Office 365. Office 365 is making life so flexible for all business sizes. It doesn't need to be a small business. It doesn't matter the business size. Office 365's flexibility and its ability in the cloud is so beneficial. Everyone can take part in that.
So I don't have to worry about an email server on site anymore if that, going down, or my internet connection stopping my email. It's all handled off site and in the cloud.
That's correct. You've got and your benefits of that is just tenfold. If you don't have to have that email server on site, number one, you don't have to worry about an engineer. You don't have to worry about an Infinity engineer coming on site. And the engineer can work remotely and support you remotely. You'll be able to have your backups, files, and everything will be done in the cloud. Like we mentioned earlier, platform independence is another great benefit of the cloud. If I use a MacBook because I'm in the marketing and the graphic design area, and the IT engineer uses Windows, and if another engineer uses a Linux device, they can actually pull up and use the cloud services without any problem. Save files and everything will be in the same. Telecommuting is a great example for location independence. What is done, what the cloud allows for, is allows you to be competitive, to get more qualified engineers and people that work in your industry. You don't have to just stick with your region. You can hire wherever, and as long as they're in the cloud, and you have ability for them to work in the cloud, they can work for anywhere. They can be in Hawaii on the beach.
So what you're saying is we're not really tied to a physical office anymore, where people have to come in and access the servers there. They can access the servers from anywhere because they live in the cloud.
That's correct.
So that's your cloud. That's kind of a nebulous term there.
Yeah.
So let's take a little bit of time and talk about network speed improvements over the last few years. Because I know if you're going to be using the cloud or working remotely, you're going to want to make sure you have the proper speed. So most network switches now run at 1 gigabit. It's getting more and more common to see 10 gigabit switches in use in businesses. You're not really seeing that 10 gigabit as an internet speed yet, but it is getting more common in the offices. And then, of course, internet speeds now are improving to over 100 megabits in a very common state now. So,
Doug, let me ask you a question
Sure.
real quick. You just mentioned 1 gigabit and 10 gigabit, and now you're telling me that, oh, look, speeds are improving
to 100
to 100
megabit.
meg.
So, kind of confusing, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a lot of gigs and megs and stuff like that.
Give me the details.
Well, it's not to get too technical. I like to break it down into ways that people can understand. So let's think of it this way. Let's talk about your internet speed first. We're talking about internet speeds being above 100 megabits. If you think of a megabit of speed as equivalent to 1 mile per hour, you can think about how fast your car drives and everything. So if you've got an internet connection speed of 100 miles an hour, that seems kind of fast, right? Well, think about it. If your office locally is running at a 1 gigabit, that's 1,000 miles per hour. And 10 gigabit would be 10,000 miles per hour. So you can start to see the differences in the speeds and what they are. So if your office is running at gigabit and you go home to access your server at the office remotely, and your local internet at your home is 30 megabit, well, you're kind of dropping from 1,000 miles per hour down to 30 miles per hour. So you can see why maybe accessing the files remotely seems a little bit slower. So when you're thinking about internet speeds and things like that, they're greatly improving all the time, thanks to Cox, Comcast, Charter, AT&T, a lot of the big players, even Google in the market now, bringing more and more fiber out to extended areas beyond just the inner cities. We're seeing faster and faster speeds. And so it's going to get more and more common to get speeds closer to what you're using in your office. the faster your internet speeds go, the easier it is to work remotely, to access things in the cloud. It's the piece that's changing how we do business, how we structure our networks and whatnot. So as the speed increases, we start to not be bound by that, physical building where we have to go to get the speeds to be able to do what we want to. I'd also like to add too that Georgia as a whole is a more connected state than most. In 1996, we actually got the Olympic Games here in Georgia, and one of the big things that did for the state is it brought a lot of connectivity upgrades in our infrastructure, for fiber infrastructure and things of that sort. And though it still may be difficult, depending on where your office is, to get the speed you want, it's easier to get the higher speeds and the fiber connectivity than it is in any other state. That means that it's drawing more businesses to the state that need that kind of connectivity. And if your business is one of those that needs that high speed fiber, you're in probably one of the best states for that.
I think that that's great information on the speeds, and I appreciate you clearing that. The speed limits. I think at my previous internet speed was 1 mile an hour.
Yes.
So
I'm pretty sure at one point I was going backwards.
yes, I'm glad that we've improved. With the increase in speeds for home usage and for locations that you would travel to, telecommuting has become and will become an even greater benefit to your business. You no longer have to worry about paying for that brick and mortar. You can have employees working from home. They can work from makeshift facilities if they're just on the travel all the time.
It's like on the job site.
Very much so. So they pretty much can work from any location. Users that can work from home can do so without having to take off with sick leave and things like that. How many times are you familiar with that an employee had to take off because they had a sick child, or the child had wisdom teeth removed, something like that, where really and truly you can't leave them, but there's nothing wrong with the worker, the employee. So if they're at home, they can actually connect and work just like they're sitting in their office with a good high-speed connection, and they would never know. You have telephone, everything will be available to that employee.
So what you're saying is the telecommuting program at your business can actually help reduce sick time.
Definitely, it can actually save productivity and money.
Excellent.
The access to cloud is secure. That is one thing that is making our telecommuting easier, is as it has progressed and the cloud has become so well known and it's also so well secured, it allows you to put in your data into the cloud without fear of security issues. Faster internet means make telecommuting like working in the office. The faster speeds that Doug was talking about is really and truly what has made telecommuting a viable solution. Just recently, we had the I don't want to say snowstorm of Georgia, or the hurricane and that kind of thing. I actually worked from home. I could take phone calls. I could connect to do all of the work that I normally could do sitting right here in the office without having to travel the 30 miles to get here through snow or hurricane winds.
So you bring up actually a very good point. So telecommuting, obviously you think of the benefit to the employee, but the benefit to the business itself is this can be a very important component of a disaster recovery plan.
Oh, it is. Telecommuting has become probably the pinnacle of a good DR plan. And one of the things that you have to worry about, that you no longer have to worry about, is the file synchronization. So you used to, before the telecommuting really allowed for you to connect in with fast connection, you would have employees file, save, and everything, take everything home with them to work. And it may be a shared file that you're working on. And so you're working on it at home. Somebody at your office is working on it now. And all of a sudden, when they come back from their hiatus and copy the files back out to the server location, they overwrite the work that you did.
I remember that. I remember losing stuff that way.
So at this point, we've got so many vendors that are doing such a good job with e-foldering and file share that we support. File synchronization is no longer a problem.
Excellent. So I'm going to take back over here for just a second, and I'm going to bring us into the virtual presence and what that means. One of the One of the tools that we frequently use is virtual presence. Obviously, that's kind of a broad term. It can mean very many things. So I kind of want to go through some of the things that we would use it for. Obviously, virtual presence and presentations is something you would do for webinars. The webinar you're watching right now is actually one of those kind of virtual environments. We are obviously not all connected in the same location. Everybody that is joined us here today and is actually participating in this presentation is at different locations. So it makes it easy for us to not have to travel or not have to secure a venue that we would all have to then travel to. It makes it possible for us to make these kind of presentations with a very short time commitment from not only those that are attending, but even for those that are presenting and organizing. Yes, sir.
So let me ask a couple of questions about your virtual presence. Is that voice or is that video or can you, so what about documents, and do I need to wear a tie?
Well, well, I guess if you're going to do video, then probably your attire may make a difference. Pajamas are not usually recommended. A tie is optional. But yes, video, access to files, even texting, computer screen sharing, joint collaboration. Let me spend a moment and just kind of go through some of those. Video conferencing by itself is a virtual presence, whereas with the increase in internet speeds, we're able to actually push more things across the internet than we were previously. One of those being video conferencing. We can now very easily have multiple people tied together in a video conference where we're all contributing real time as if we were all sitting around one table, one conference room table. Document collaboration, you mentioned, do I get to bring documents? One of the new virtual presence tools that have kind of entered our toolbox in the last few years is the ability to collaborate on documents simultaneously. This means that quite literally you could have 2 or more people making actual live changes to a document that everybody sees and everybody contributes to. You add to that video conferencing so that you're communicating, and all of a sudden you've got a very dynamic ability to get something done in a true collaborative fashion. And because of the fact that people are working remotely, like you spoke of, we could have people in, Japan and the United Kingdom and the U.S. all working on the same document at the same time and, talking about it at the same time. So, remote support is another way of virtual presence. I always like to throw that one in because that's kind of what we do. No longer do we have to stick a technician in a truck and drive them 30 minutes to your location just to have them do 10 minutes worth of work. Obviously, we can get more done because of the fact that we can work remotely by having them do the 10 minutes worth of work and omit the 30 minutes worth of driving. Training. Training is another great tool for doing this, not only because you can do the virtual presence, but in the same way that we're recording this video for posterity's sake, or for other people to review it. But you can actually save the training and reuse it over and over again, so that not only can you do it live, but you can have an instructor that makes available training at any time through recorded content. Live remote presence, where you're actually interacting directly on a particular instance with another individual. And in a moment, I'm going to give you a great example of that. In fact, why don't I go through some examples of how we use these things now. So when we're talking about webinars, we're doing that now through Skype. Skype is a tool that allows us to not only present my screen, I'm able to provide audio for what we're doing. We could also provide video. We're not for this particular instance, but it does make it easy to interact with those and others. There's also the ability for those that are attending to interact with us and to ask questions and stuff like that. Speaking of, if there is anyone that wants to stop us during the presentation and ask a question, I usually mention that in the beginning and I failed to, but please feel free to type your question into the question area, and we'll be more than happy to answer that question for you. But GoToMeeting, Skype, JoinMe, these are all tools that you would use to do these type of things. Video conferencing, things like Skype and FaceTime. I have found that by giving you examples of tools that you may be using already, that you kind of put together what we're talking about when we say video conferencing. FaceTime is one of those things that make it so easy that, you know, when I'm on one side of the house and my kids are on the other side of the house, I use it all the time.
Well, I have to admit, FaceTime is a wonderful thing, a wonderful tool. My kids are further away than the other side of the house. I've got one in Arkansas, one in Virginia. So ultimately, we are just like we're sitting right next to each other. So
Yep.
It works wonderful.
It is great. Document collaboration, we talked about things like Office 365 and Google Docs give you this kind of capabilities. Remote support, obviously, Infinity is the one I want to talk about there. We are able to provide that for you. Training, when you think about training, think about things like going to college. You know, you can do that all online now, and where you can literally log in and listen to your instructor or your professor present. He can take questions directly from those that are attending, as if you're sitting in the classroom. Same thing with even other training like we offer with Bigger Brains, where that you can actually have those same kind of sessions are then recorded and able to be replayed later. Kind of, you know, changes the whole note-taking concept when you're attending those things. And then, of course, live remote presence. The ITM is a wonderful example of that. And if you don't know what the ITM is, it's everybody's familiar with an automated teller machine. So this is a great example. An ITM is an interactive teller machine. So my bank closes at 5:30, but they keep taking transactions until 11 o'clock at night. And the way they do that is I can pull into the drive-through at my bank at 10 o'clock at night if I want to. Everybody in the bank's gone home. There's nobody in the drive-through, but I pull up to this machine and I touch the screen, and all of a sudden there's a live person on the other side of the screen, just like pulling up to a regular teller drive-through. Now they are located somewhere else in the state, but they will help me through the process. I can use the machine to, you know, put my checks in, my money. They can, you know, scan things, send it back to me, those kind of things. And I got all the functions of the bank as if I was sitting at a teller window, but I'm actually just sitting at this device. So
what you're saying is at the ITM, you have communicating with another human being.
yes,
If you make an error, or if the machine itself counts your money wrong, or if it reads your check deposit wrong, you have the person right there in front of you you can speak to live.
yeah. And the reason I like to use the ITM as an example is a lot of times technology, though making us more efficient, tends to separate us from our relationships with our customers. And so it's very important when you're implementing technology to make sure that you're not sacrificing that relationship for the sake of efficiency. In the case of automatic teller machines, banks did just that. They stopped you from interacting with a human. You did all their work for them, and they're charging you for it. And it became an impediment between the client and the organization. The ITM is kind of a blend. They're still getting the efficiency of using the technology because one person can support multiple locations now, but they're also still having that personal interaction where you can talk to a human being. So it's a good blend of the technology. You know, another place that uses this kind of virtual presence technology where, and because we're talking about computers and sharing screens and doing video conferencing and stuff like that, but you talked earlier about, you know, the voice, fast food restaurants. It's getting more and more common for fast food restaurants to have someone taking the order who's in a different state or maybe a different area. And this one person may be taking the order for 50 different restaurants. So now you're seeing, you know, the economy of scale too there. You're actually able to support multiple locations with less employees, so you've got a lower cost. And it's still efficient. You're getting, you know, because of technology, they can answer the board for a number of restaurants at one time.
In multiple languages.
In multiple languages too.
I think with all that conversation, let's get a little more deeper into software as a service.
So what exactly is software as a service?
Software as a service is where you don't have to buy the physical hard piece of software. You actually are renting it, leasing it.
That's a great idea.
Leasing your time using the software. So we'll go through some of the benefits of being able to, shall we say, just lease or rent the software. One is it removes deployment burden. Under software as a service, you'll be able to use Office 365 as an example, there's nothing really to install. It's more of just an access point, and it really doesn't matter the platform. Yes.
So instead of installing an Exchange server in my location so that I could use email, it's just now in the cloud and I connect to it and pay a monthly fee.
That is correct. No longer, there's so many benefits and so much of an economy that you can realize from that. And we'll get further into that too. It removes the burden of compliance and security. And what I mean by the burden of compliance and security is now you don't have to hire a security team or a compliance team to come in, because you're actually getting those two things with your subscription to the software as a service. The vendor or service provider that's giving you the software license and everything is the one that has on staff their compliance staff and their security staff. So no longer are the days of, oh no, is my email server secure? Did I deploy this properly? Do I need to get my own SSL certificate? Blah, blah, blah. So they have the staff to support your compliance and your security. The software is always up to date. Whenever you have software as a service, it really does take away those, oh, we got to put it on the calendar. We've got 208 users. We've got however many deployments we have to get this new update to, and then you have to test it in a test environment. You have to pay multiple people to come in and get everything done as a forklift upgrade, because you can't have one part of your staff on one version and another part of your staff on another version. So it just really benefits having the software is always up to date in the background. Let the vendor take care of that for you. The license management flexibility. A good example of that would be if you have your busy time is in the summer months and you need to hire 2 or 3 temps. So you're able to add on those 2 or 3 licenses and use them for the time that you need. You can actually just give up those licenses when those temps are gone, and then you can go back to your previous billing without any problem. So it gives you more of a flexibility that you would than if you were to buy a piece of software.
So just so I'm clear, so if in the past I knew that at some point I was going to have 10 people that needed this software, I would have had to invest for 10 licenses, 10 seats, and keep those, and just 5 of them may not be used part of the time, but 5 of them would be. Does that sound right?
That is exactly right.
So now instead I just say, hey, this month I need 5 extra. Next month, do away with
them. There's no.
And I'm only paying that monthly fee versus the total cost of the software just to sit there idle.
Yeah, and then it just collects dust after your staff.
I think that's a great idea.
Another benefit is that the documents and the data will always be compatible between the users and versions, kind of like what I mentioned a while ago about it was always up to date. It also means that it's not going to slip through the cracks, and you've got a Office 20.
So I don't have Bob in accounting complaining that he can't open Larry's Excel spreadsheet because Larry has 2016 Excel and Bob has 97 Excel.
And no longer is that a problem, because the 97, of course, would be no longer supported. And so if he had saved it over Bob would be a very angry individual.
I can imagine.
So the versions and compatibility is just enormous in the support of your staff. Backups is another issue. Every business has the need for backing up their data to make sure it's secure off-site in the event of disaster recovery. But it's usually an automated service. I mean, if you have your Office products, or if you're using Google Apps, or you're doing anything in the cloud as such, that it's being backed up by the people you're paying for those services. Of course, it's a monthly fee, but it's included. It's all rolled in. It's not an additional thing. You don't have to worry about it.
So going back to the Office 365, like you were talking about, if my computer was to say get stolen, and I didn't have access to the email that was on that computer, it's okay because my email is backed up on the cloud.
That is correct. Not to mention, it's not really on that laptop. And so if your laptop has good protection for the endpoint protection, as we typically like to encrypt the drives and everything and put this security on it, then you're not going to have to send letters out to all your clients that you had a data breach.
Excellent.
Now that we've talked about software as a service, let's kind of segue into the hardware, because hardware as a service is another piece of that's trending, that's helping businesses manage and maintain their cost associated with the IT environment.
Now, is that a rental like it is with software as a service?
It is. It's pretty much like a rental. It's more termed out because there's real hard cost in it. It's not so much like with the software. Software, pretty much you can do away with it real quickly, but once you enter into like a rental agreement, it's more of a lease. So you've got a term that you're going to have to finish out on that.
Okay.
There's no insurance needed. Since you don't really own the hardware, you don't have to worry about having to provide the insurance that you normally would for your inventory of items that you would have to keep in before. There's no need to worry about taxes. Your tax benefit of not having to pay an annual property tax or anything like that on your assets is no longer yours. That is included in the hardware as a service agreement, and the provider is actually having to pay those. So they're kind of rolled in there. They're not, no, I don't want to mislead. Somebody's still paying them, and you're probably going to get it passed along, but you're getting an economy of scale there.
Excellent.
There's no need to depreciate. One of the more important things there is your accountant's going to be a lot happier, and he's going to charge you less because your depreciation schedule will be much shorter than in other times. Whenever you had 250 items on your books, you can actually just do away with it because it's not on your books. Always updated hardware. That's another thing. It is such a huge burden financially and just overall in the change in the business itself that every 5 years when it's time to upgrade servers, PCs, everything, now you all of a sudden you have to start budgeting for it. But if you're doing hardware as a service, that's going to be managed, that's going to be roadmapped, and it's going to be handled for you in the background, and you'll know exactly when that's going to happen going forward. You don't have to worry about when's it's going to happen, when can we get it done. It's going to already be staked.
So just to kind of clear this up for me, what you're saying is no longer do I have to worry about lifecycle management. It's going to be built into the program. And instead of worrying about a capital expenditure, every few years or of thousands of dollars, instead I just get a small, manageable monthly payment.
Yeah, and a good example is the ITAP from Infinity. Working with clients, the clients that you and I work with, it's a conversation item that's on the roadmap. Everybody's expecting it. They already know how to budget for it. They know that whenever it's time to happen, it's going to be better for them because they know what's coming. So it just works out so much better.
Excellent.
The operation expense and the monthly charges, they're finite. They're your norms. You're not worried about, well, this piece of hardware has crashed and now I've got to come up with $3,500 or $5,500 or $10,500, whatever the cost is for that hardware. Hardware as a service, you kind of put that monkey on the service provider's back.
So no more surprises.
That's correct.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and transition back to me, and let's talk about artificial intelligence. So one of the things that I don't know if you noticed, that's a HAL 9000's eye up that.
What is that red dot there?
That red dot is, I'm a big science fiction fan, and of course there's a movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey and a sequel to it, 2010, The Year We Made Contact. And they had a computer on board that was an artificial intelligent computer that ran everything. Of course, it didn't end well for the team on the spacecraft, but that's obviously a different story. But whenever somebody says artificial intelligence, I always think of HAL. HAL is 3 letters off the IBM is how they came up with the name for the movie. But more realistically, when you're talking about artificial intelligence, you're talking about things that you're using on a day-to-day basis. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Doug, I want to stop you before you get into the real artificial intelligence discussion. We're older, and I understand that we know who HAL is, and there's probably some people that's going to see this that says, well, what are you talking about? I would say that if you want to go ahead and talk about the red dot in iRobot, Mike would be it didn't go well for them either. So.
It didn't go well. Somehow we always tend to, in the movies, the artificial intelligence ends up being the bad guy. So, but in the real life, artificial intelligence, at least at this point, is still the good guy. It can help you with things like automatic scheduling. When you're arriving at an airport and you're expecting to catch a connecting flight, well, that's more notifications. The scheduling that's done on that is usually being done by a computer system that's automated, that's using some form of artificial intelligence. having, asking Siri to set something on your calendar. You're interacting with this artificial intelligence as if it's a human being. You're using what is normal conversational speech to have it do something for you, and it's able to take that, interpret it, and then make decisions based on what it thinks you want, or based on a set of criteria what it should decide for you. For example, that flight coming in, if your connecting flight was delayed, you would want to know that. So an artificial intelligence can determine that and know, okay, well, this is the flight delayed. I need to go ahead and notify everybody that is on connecting flights that this flight is delayed, and use the contact information that we have stored in this other system to notify them.
So when it comes to like the notifications of the flight delay, so what you're saying is people are managing and monitoring this so they can send these things out?
Well, that's the thing. In the past, it would require a person to be involved and to actually update and do this. And then we kind of evolved from people doing it to having automated systems based on a set of criteria. If the situation met this exact criteria, it knew to do X. The problem with both of those is that, one, human error, and then two, if you haven't already kind of predefined what the criteria is or predefined what the response should be, there's not one. Enter artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence actually can take and make a decision based on the information it's had on how you want to behave. Now, you may set some priorities and some kind of expectations for it on what you want it to do, but it'll make decisions based on information and filling gaps, so that when you do have a void in data of information that's normally there that's missing, or new information that's not normally there, it's able to take that and use it and make a decision based on it. Now, of course, artificial intelligence isn't flawless, but it is getting closer. One of the great things about it that's being used a lot, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in big data, is that you can use it to do marketing in real time. You can set artificial intelligence to analyze whether or not traffic to your website, say, is being effective, and how to adjust that. Say maybe item X is on sale and it's not getting traffic, but item Y is. Well, the artificial intelligence can make the judgment to shift the sale to item Y. Or you can, go ahead. I'm sorry, you have
I've just got a question.
Sure.
So that might explain a couple of things for me. My wife and I share the same Amazon account, and so I go on Amazon and look for a gift for her in her Facebook feed. It shows the gifts that are available at Amazon that I've been looking at. Is that's just one little caveat we have to be a little careful about?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good tool if you're on the business side of that, because think about it. You have an artificial intelligence, which is, for all intents and purposes, a very complex computer program that's saying, hey, this person is associated with this person over here, and this person is shopping this thing, but they didn't buy it. So how can I get this thing in front of that person again as frequently as possible to make them want to buy it? Well, not only will it show up in your news feed, it can show up in her news feed. Suddenly it'll tell you how many people have purchased that thing. Then you'll see it in your news feed. All of these people purchased this, or they like that. It's pulling this information from what we call big data. A lot of that collected data is being used by artificial intelligence because it's impossible for us as humans to digest and process that much. We need a new mechanism to be able to parse that kind of data. And that's where artificial intelligence come in. We talked a moment ago about Siri, but I keep, every time I say, hey Siri, I think my phone's going to go off. But I have Alexa in my home. And so I'm using Alexa or Siri several times a day. That's an artificial intelligence. That's actually something I'm communicating with in a human form that is taking that and making a decision based on what I want and delivering something back to me. It won't be long before those advance into even more complex artificial intelligence that can do more than just deliver something across the internet. So, of course, the thing we want the artificial intelligence to do the most is we want the artificial intelligence to open the pod bay doors. For those of y'all that aren't, actually, that's a reference from the 2001 Space Odyssey movie. Hal did not open the Padre doors, which did not end well for the crew. So let's take a quick trip now that we're kind of talking about artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is really meant to take advantage of big data. So big data analytics is where we're going to go to next. So what is big data? Well, big data is defined as extremely large data sets that may be analyzed computationally to reveal patterns, trends, and associations, especially relating to human behavior and interactions. In the world that we live in, especially with social media, the entities that you interact with business-wise, and of course, even that interact with us business-wise, and those that are on the call, maybe your company, you're collecting data points. And those data points may be something as minuscule as how long you looked at a picture on Facebook to something you put in your cart and didn't purchase, But these are all data points. And of course, because we're capturing as many data points as possible, we end up with a large set of data across a large, vast swipe of transactions and people that is really impossible for us to analyze ourselves. So we have to use analytical tools, and some of those are artificial intelligence, to be able to sort out that data and how we can use it. So let's talk a little bit about how, as a business, you can use big data analytics. Well, you can use it to do more targeted marketing. I think you mentioned a moment ago about things showing up in your wife's newsfeed. Okay, but big data, I'm going to use Walmart as an example. Walmart introduced radio frequency ID tags about 15 years ago. They are the ones that originally came up with the idea of these tags, and you may not know what they are, but they're those little things that attach to products that tell the computer what the product is. It tells you if it's going out the door illegally. It does all kind of things. It can be tagged on a chicken, and it can tell you if the chicken thawed during transport. So but they didn't exist before Walmart wanted to use them. So they came up with the idea, and an entire industry sprang up around radio frequency ID tags. Now Walmart has started converting all their stores to not only help them to deliver these items into the store with these tags on them, but to track the items while they're in the store. So you go to Walmart and you take your buggy and you're driving through the store picking up things that you need, and you happen to notice this hat. And this hat's a really nice hat, and you think, you know what, I'd look good in that hat, I'm going to buy that hat. And you put the hat in your buggy, and you drive around the store a little bit more, and you pick up a few other things, and then by the time you get to checkout, you're like, you know what, I don't really need that hat. I'm going to take that hat and take it out. Well, because of the radio frequency ID tags, it's been tracking that hat was in your buggy, and when you go to checkout, it's going to capture who you are. It's going to associate it with any account you have online that it can see and know, because maybe you have your Walmart account online, and maybe you used your Facebook to sign into it. And so now all of a sudden they know that you picked up this hat, put it in your cart, you drove around the store with it, didn't want it, and now when you leave, they can market to you directly. If you suddenly start seeing Facebook ads, or you're in some other social media mechanism, or maybe you're on Amazon, and all of a sudden you start seeing that exact same hat being advertised, that's why. Because now that big data has been put out there in a large, those data points are collected, and something is out there parsing that information and saying, hey, we can sell this hat to this guy if we just get it in front of him one more time. Now, normally that would be almost impossible for a human being to track if the data is too large and too vast. But by doing so, if you know your data points and you've got a mechanism for parsing that data, you can directly market to those people in a more effective way. Does that make sense?
It does. But so what you're saying is it goes well beyond marketing. So the RFID chip, that is the same thing that we put in our beloved animals. So if they get lost, we can get them back. Is that the same
technology?
The same technology and big data?
The same technology. And it's just a way of collecting data points. I don't want to confuse it with big data. It's just a way of collecting data points. And I use that example because in your business, you're probably collecting data points as well. Even if you're a manufacturer of X widgets, all kind of things about that widget and about your clients. And you can use that data and extract it to build business dashboards. One of the things that a lot of people do, they use QuickBooks in small business. So QuickBooks has a vast amount of data in it. It's got your clients, it's got your vendors, it's got your transactional data, you can pull reports for your profit and loss, and it's got a lot of this information, and you can pull reports and things out of it. But there's a lot of data in there that you're putting in, from simple things as simple as the patterns of certain spends and the purchases you make at different times of the year that you may not be conscious of because you don't think about it. You maybe every March you spend more money because you make the same kind of purchase, but you're not really thinking about it from a perspective. So you can pull that data out into a dashboard, because the data is too big for you to use. So there are companies out there that will actually take a feed from your QuickBooks and give you a dashboard that shows you some of these things. And from one dashboard, you could see, not only your AR, your AP, and your P&L. You could see, who's behind on payments, and what things you'd have to pay next, and things of that sort. So it gives you the ability to parse the data down into digestible chunks for you. Client profitability is another one. One of the things that I like to talk about, I'm not going to just kind of give you an example. I'm not going to name the bank. It doesn't exist anymore. They're out of business now. But the banks collect a lot of data. Because they have all your accounts and transactions, your safety deposit box, and your loans and everything. They know exactly everything you need to know about you because they've asked for it at some point, and it's in their systems. I worked for a bank where we implemented a big data mining project where we actually looked at different data points within the bank's database. And I'll never forget actually sitting down with the board of directors, and the board of directors wanted to know who was the most profitable customer. They said, I know who the most profitable customer is. It's X Builder. Well, it turns out X Builder was probably one of our least profitable customers. In fact, most of the time we were losing money on them because they were a big account. Everybody kind of gave them everything for free. And what ended up being the most profitable was a woman who was using the overdraft protection and paying the fees every time, and she was paying a large amount of fees annually to the bank. The reason I wanted to bring that up is because big data and being able to pull that information out through an analytical process can fundamentally change how you conduct business. As you might imagine, that fundamentally changed how the bank looked at its account holders and how they were charging them, okay? Because sometimes what you think is going on is not really what's going on, and only by analyzing the data will you be able to know that. And that's when you're finding those patterns that can help you make those additional business decisions. So now that we're kind of finished with big data, and I know I'm kind of long-winded there, Mick, I'm gonna hand it back to you for managed services.
Yeah, let's talk about managed service providers. And basically, if we go back over all the slides that we've been discussing, telecommuting, higher speeds, support, economy of scale, those things, they really lead you to a managed service provider relationship. What it does, it allows a business to focus on their business and not on IT. I had a famous quote from a gentleman I worked for. He owned a bank. He didn't own an IT company. So that was really important in my mindset as I grew in my career, is that, it's not everybody's place to understand IT as well as we do. That's what we get paid for, is to have all the knowledge and at least have all the resources. You're able to leverage the economy of scale, have a larger pool of skilled technicians, usually for much less than what the cost of one junior tech can cost an individual company. To give you an example, is you can have our higher level engineers that are taking care of higher level problems within the MSP instead of trying to pay multiple layers of IT staff in your normal business.
So instead of hiring one junior person, I can hire an entire staff of technical experts that doesn't take vacation, that I don't have to pay payroll taxes on, that are available throughout the year without, worried about sick time and time off. And
well, actually, they do take vacation. That's the beauty of this whole situation.
But you have somebody to back them up.
But they have backups, and they have a full staff. And so you don't have to worry about vacations. You don't have to worry about their benefit packages. You don't have to worry about sick leave and everything. So it really does help with the economy of scale for your business. Um, one partner, one person to blame, one person to call. This is broke. I want this fixed.
One throat to choke.
Yep. You just hang up the phone and watch it happen. That's the beauty of the MSP is, Doug and I are VCIOs in this organization, and so we're the throat that people want to choke. And but what it does is we're like the quarterback. I think Charlie has mentioned that we're the quarterback. We don't fix all the problems. We direct things to happen to fix the problems. And so it gives you that one person to call and say, look, I need this done, and this is why. And it also gives you that one person to go to say, I need these updates done because my new software vendor says I need X. And so that's where Doug and I come in. And that kind of leads us into the VCIO, a dedicated consultant to help you make business decisions around your technology needs and your plans for the future. To give you a little bit of information on Doug and I've been in the IT industry for 30 plus years. Doug has as well. So we are very senior level engineers, as well as consultants, as well as everything IT. Mm-hmm. So you've got 60 plus years sitting here talking to you today, and this not costing you, but just at the cost of a junior IT person.
And we'll also like to add that we also have the business experience, having owned our own businesses and being able to have those conversations, not just about the technology, but how the technology can apply to your company, about the financials, and about, planning. And we can cover every aspect of it, just like a VCIO would if you had one internally.
Exactly. So in our role, information security comes as a piece of it. You just have so many individuals you can leverage for your business benefit by using a managed service provider. Another thing that really is a huge benefit to the customer, to the client, is the accountability of a service level agreement for the performance. You can't control that if you have a junior level engineer on your staff. You're pretty much at their whim of being able to get it done. Beyond Google and a couple of other things, you're pretty much handcuffed to that particular individual. If you're here, you can rattle off a lot of certifications that we have on staff here. They're longer than we have time to discuss here. But if we have a problem with a Cisco device, we have a guy on staff that's certified. If we have a problem with Linux, we have people we can go to. So what it does is it allows us to finish the job in an accountable time frame, which gives the service level agreement meaning. If I say I want to get the tickets done in a certain length of time, I have the resources to make sure it gets done. And Doug and I, when we meet with you on a quarterly basis, we go over that to make sure we do.
Okay, excellent. So that's going to conclude our webinar for today. Before we completely close out and everything, normally we would ask you to put your email address in the question and answer field so that we can make sure you're registered for the drawing. Unfortunately, we are having a technical difficulty with our Q&A component right now and are unable to receive information. I hope that hasn't stopped anybody from being able to get a question answered. If it has, please feel free to email us or call us directly. I'll be happy, or Mick will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But we'll go ahead and plan on picking a winner for the card out of those that registered for the event. If you're here and you didn't register, please just drop us an email. We'll make sure we get you added to the list. And as always, whenever we do one of these, we want to offer the invitation to come out and sit with you, or to take a phone call and just go over any of these topics that you'd like to spend a little bit more time on and what they can specifically mean to your business. We enjoy doing this. We like to see technology fundamentally change companies and to be a part of that. And we're always happy to sit down with you. So
since we don't have a Q&A available to us, I have a question that came into my mind a while ago. And
okay.
I thought it might be, with all the big data discussion and the Amazon showing up on my wife's feed, everything, how can I opt out?
A lot of the programs have the ability to opt out. Some do not. And you're going to be in situations like with Facebook currently, where even though you may have opted out, your data is still being used. There are security protocols and what's the right word, actions that you can take to kind of better protect yourself. And I think that might be a longer discussion than we have time for here. But
you can.
But you can.
I can't opt out of it.
And because this is an ever-evolving kind of industry. I mean, 10 years ago, these things didn't exist. So some of this is going to have to work itself out through some pretty ugly exposures from some of these big companies. I think Facebook is going through that right now, where the goal afterward would be, a more secure environment. And a lot of these things aren't regulated right now, and that may be something else coming down the pike that'll change that as well.
Thanks.
Okay. So that wraps us up for today, folks. I want to thank everybody for coming. And again, if there's anything that we can do for you or any questions we can answer, please feel free to contact us. Have a great day.
Thank you.